Tonight we will travel very slowly toward the end of one world and the quiet beginning of another. The old Norse people told of a time they called Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods, when even the mighty and the immortal would at last lie down to rest, and the world itself would sink gently beneath the waves, only to rise again, green and new, from the calm water. It may sound like a story of endings, but listen closely, and you will find it is really a story of rest and of renewal, the same slow turning that carries every long day into night and every long winter into spring. There is nothing here to fear tonight. We are only visitors, watching from a great and peaceful distance as one age softly closes its eyes and another slowly opens them. So let your breathing settle and let the old prophecy wash over you like a slow tide, and let yourself drift, unhurried and unafraid, toward the deep and quiet rest that waits patiently. At the end of all things, and at the beginning of all things too. The old stories say that Ragnarök begins not with a sudden crash, but with a long and gathering quiet, a great winter called the Fimbulwinter. 3 long winters would come, one after another, with no gentle summer in between, until the whole world lay hushed and white and still beneath an endless fall of snow. Imagine it softly now, the wind slowing, the fields growing pale, the rivers going quiet beneath their ice. The animals of the forest curl deeper into their dens. The people bank their fires a little higher and draw their blankets a little closer, and the world seems to hold its breath, waiting, resting, gathering itself in the deep white silence. There is a strange peace in a heavy snowfall, the way it softens every sound, the way it slows the whole world down until nothing moves but the drifting flakes. Let that same softness settle over you now, quiet upon quiet, the long white winter of the old story wrapping the world and wrapping you in its deep and gentle hush. As the long winter deepened, the old bonds that held the world in place began very slowly to loosen. Deep beneath the earth, the great wolf Fenrir, who had lain bound and patient for longer than anyone could remember, began at last to stir from his long sleep. Far out in the cold ocean, the world serpent Jörmungandr, who had circled the whole of the earth with his endless coils, shifted gently in the deep, and the waters stirred above him. These were not acts of anger, the old stories seemed to say, but simply the turning of a great wheel, the quiet loosening of things that had been held tight for a very long time, the way a held breath is finally, slowly released. Everything that is bound is eventually unbound. Everything that sleeps eventually wakes, and everything that wakes eventually sleeps again. There is a deep calm in accepting this slow turning, in knowing that you do not have to hold anything tightly tonight, that you can let every knot loosen, every muscle soften, every worry slip its bonds and drift quietly away into the dark. Then the old stories tell, the seas themselves began to rise. As the world serpent uncoiled from the deep, the great ocean swelled and lifted, and the waters climbed slowly over the low green shores. This was not a violent flood in the telling, so much as a vast and solemn tide, the sea rising the way it always rises, patient and certain, reclaiming the land grain by grain. A great ship was said to loosen from its moorings and drift free upon the rising water, carried gently outward on the swelling sea. Picture that dark water now, wide and deep and slow, rolling in long smooth swells beneath a pale and silent sky. There is something deeply restful in the movement of a great body of water, the slow rise and fall, the endless patient rhythm, older than any god, older than the world itself. Let your breathing follow that rhythm now, rising slowly, falling slowly, like the swell of a vast and peaceful sea, carrying you further and further from the shore of the waking world. And then from the far south, from the fiery realm of Muspelheim, came a warm and distant glow. Surtur, the ancient guardian of the flames, was said to ride forth with a sword that shone like the setting sun, and the sky itself seemed to open with light. In the old telling this was fearsome, but from our quiet distance tonight, let us see it simply as the world's great fire, warm and golden, rising to meet the cold of the long winter. Fire and ice, the two forces from which the world was first made, coming together once more at the world's ending, the way they had come together at its beginning. Watch the embers drift upward now, slow and glowing, like sparks rising gently from a dying campfire late at night. Feel the distant warmth of it, soft against the deep cold, neither harsh nor frightening, only the quiet closing of a great circle. The world was born of fire and ice, and to fire and ice it now gently returns. And there is a deep and ancient rightness in that, a completeness that asks nothing of you but to watch and rest. Upon a wide and level plain called Vigrid, the old stories say, all the great powers of the world gathered together for the last time. Odin came, and Thor, and all the gods of Asgard, and with them rode the fallen warriors who had waited so long in Valhalla, and against them came the giants and the great creatures of the deep and the dark. Yet tonight, let us not dwell on the clash itself, but on the strange and solemn calm that comes before it. The moment when everyone has finally arrived, and everything that will happen is already set, and there is nothing left to do but let the great story unfold as it was always going to unfold. There is a peculiar peace in that kind of acceptance, in the letting go of struggle, in knowing that some things are simply part of a turning far larger than ourselves. The gods did not weep, the old stories say, nor did they flee. They met their fate the way the sun meets the horizon at dusk, steadily and without fear, and with a quiet dignity that asks us to loosen our grip, and to trust the slow turning of the night. And so, one by one, the old powers passed, and the great story reached its close. Odin and the wolf, Thor and the serpent, the fire and the fading light, all of it moving through its long-appointed turning until at last a great and final stillness settled over everything. And then gently, the tired world sank down beneath the wide, dark sea. The flames sank low and went out. The waters rose and grew calm. And where there had been such a long and gathering turning, there was now only smooth, dark water, stretching quiet and unbroken beneath a soft and silent sky. It was not a fearful ending in the old telling, but a deep and complete rest, the whole world laying itself down at last beneath a cool and gentle blanket of sea. Everything that had been was now simply resting, held and quiet in the deep. And in that vast, calm stillness, that long, slow pause between one age and the next, there was room at last for everything to be still and silent and utterly, peacefully at rest. Let yourself sink into that same deep stillness now. But the old story does not end in darkness, for the Norse did not believe the world simply ended. They believed it was reborn. After the long stillness, the waters slowly parted, and the earth rose once more from the sea, fresh and green and new, washed clean and gleaming in a soft new light. Where there had been ash, now there were meadows. Where there had been dark water, now there were rivers running clear and bright. Grain grew again in fields no one had sown, and the world lay quiet and gentle and new, waiting patiently to be lived in once more. A few of the gods survived, the old stories tell, the young and the peaceful ones, and they walked out into the green morning and found, lying in the new grass, the golden game pieces of the gods who had come before, small treasures from the old world, waiting there for them in the dew. There is such tenderness in that image, such quiet hope, the new world remembering the old one gently, carrying its small treasures forward into the light. And two people, the old story says, had sheltered safely through it all, hidden away in a quiet wood, sleeping softly while the great world turned. When they woke at last, they stepped out into the fresh green morning of the new world, and from them, in time, all of life would begin again. A new sun, daughter of the old, rose gently into a clean and cloudless sky, and cast her soft light over the green and gleaming earth, and everything that had ended began once more to begin. And so the great circle closes, and quietly opens again, the way night closes each day only to open it fresh at dawn, the way winter closes the world only to open it green in spring. There is nothing to fear in any ending tonight, for every ending, the old story gently promises, is only the quiet doorway to a new beginning. So let this long day end now, softly and completely. Let the old world sink beneath its peaceful sea, and let yourself drift, calm and unafraid, into the deep and gentle rest from which all new mornings, in time, are born.